Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Skyborn. My name is Zedek, and I've somehow mistaken a game about beavers with city skylines. You see, I'm trying to transform this entire map into a vertical city, and we're well on the way to doing that. Last episode, we started to repair the broken down Aqueduct, which is kind of the corner piece of this map, and we started to actually make it a little bit more city-like by adding a tube transit network. This episode, though, I want to turn my eye to the industrial district. I want to start prepping this land for some industrial towers. So if we take a look at the bird's eye view of the map, we can see that the aqueduct kind of naturally divides it into four corners. I'm thinking of the top left corner here, the one with all the bad water. That's where I want to put my industrial district. Now this corner of the map is some really untamed terrain. As you can see, I've kind of tamed the corner over here, which I'm calling Old Town, and this section over here, which I'm using as tree farms, but eventually this is going to be kind of the modern bulk of our city. This area though, wow, what makes this really tricky is I've got a lot of ruins everywhere. So you can see these ruins too are all the way buried at the bottom of this bad water lake, which we'd probably have to end up draining in order to actually repair and tear these out. Same thing with all of this. I can't dynamite this stuff until I get rid of these ruins. Finally, the aqueduct on both sides of this kind of quadrant, they're all kind of in need of repair. So I'm thinking all that has to be fixed. So that's kind of fair game for this episode. And then I'd like to start working on a place for a power plant. Now for the power plant, I'm thinking I want something over here in this corner. Power plants, I don't need beavers to man them. So I kind of want to push them far away from where all the beavers live. That way I can reserve areas close to their homes for actual buildings that I need manned. So I'm thinking power plants, maybe somewhere over here in the corner. Maybe somewhere here and over here. And some of you are probably asking what I mean by a power plant. When I say that, I'm not referring to engines. What I'm referring to is something like this. Some set of water wheels powered by bad water that, with the help of a bad water discharge, I can keep running all the time. I just refer to them as power plants because for some reason I'm playing a different game in my mind. So if that's the goal for this episode, we've got a lot of work cut out for us. Well, one thing I'm going to start with, because this is going to get kind of a trek to get beavers out here, I'm going to try to extend our tube network with some easier access. I think I could also make use of this tube network over here with the beavers living in this area. I could probably just build some platforms over like this, hook into that station and just run something over. This area of the map I'm kind of calling Old Town, so I don't really care if it looks like a hive city. Eventually these other parts of the city though, I think I'm going to go for a more kind of curated, manicured look to it. But for the purpose of this, let's just go ahead and take this line all the way down here, and I think we can just run it right through the bottom of this area here where we don't have anything else going on. Next up, for some long-term planning. We should start having some beavers work on these ruins. Problem is, this little pit here is also the location where our bad water discharge is. So I can't really drain this yet, even if I were to cap this off, because it's just going to fill up the next bad tide we've got. So I'm going to hold off on that until I repair this aqueduct. But I think I should get beavers up here to start tearing out some of these ruins. Unfortunately, these are really high up there. I'm just going to pay the cost and make a really tall staircase all the way to the top. Actually, you know what I should be doing instead of this? Why don't I use tubes to get up there? It's probably a lot faster. I haven't been using tubes as much as I could, so I really want to see what I can pull off with them. Probably really expensive to do this, but I'm just going to go all the way up to the top, but I think we should be able to figure out some way up here to make a tube-way station. We'll get people up there, we're going to get all that torn off, and then we'll come back later to figure out how we're going to get rid of these. And, you know, eventually I might rebuild these vats in the future. It might be nice to kind of have a nice callback to what used to be in the map before I made it a giant city. And luckily, with all our industrial might, it looks like this is going in pretty quick. In fact, I can see our existing two-way network has already been put in, and it's already being used. You know, I bet I could make another really short adjustment to this tube network. I could probably hook into this network up here too. Cut off some of the transit time for them. Construction of that tubeway is coming in nicely. Let's turn our eye to a really quick side quest. You can see all this new construction I'm going to do is going to use a lot of logs. And you can see at this point, I've stripped basically our entire forest over here. We're consuming all these trees faster than I can keep up. maybe kind of a long-term investment is we should probably start filling in some of this pit here. I think this would be a good option to just fill it with more trees. Oh, and you can see here, this is actually something that just came out in experimental, and I accidentally used it. Dirt can now be stacked on top of each other to create tunnels and overhangs. So I could actually make this hollow underneath without worrying about what's underneath it. That's actually interesting. Could I seal off that mine? Well, I guess the limit is you can only have so much that is unsupported without a pillar. So you can see here, it won't let me build anymore. But if I build that, now suddenly I can. I think that's going to unlock a lot of different things you could build in this game then. Because now you can basically turn this entire game into Dwarf Fortress. Well, I'll have to think about more of how I can use that. That's given me some ideas of what I could potentially build in this game. For now, though, I am going to start sealing off some of these corners for trees still. Well, I think we've about run out of dirt at this point, so I'm going to leave it at this. We'll create another stockpile and we'll come back later to finish this. Let's go back to our main goal for this episode, our industrial district. Let's first take a look to see how we're doing with our scrap removal. Unfortunately, it looks like this kind of stalled out, and that's because we don't have any need for the scrap. There's no more storage for it, so they're not bothering to pull it out. You know, let's throw in maybe storage down here just for now. This is actually a good sign because it means that we've got so much metal that we have no need of the metal scrap to be refined. Yeah, let's get that built, and you know, I'm gonna turn off the efficient mine for a little bit then too, until we work through some of that scrap, because I bet that the efficient mine would just fill out this new storage that we're about to build anyways. Then we can turn it on later when things are looking okay. And you see, as soon as I built this, we actually ran into the problem I expected. This mine had over 300 scrap metal stockpiled, so as soon as these became available, they just got filled up with all the stuff from the mine. That's unfortunate. I probably need to have at least 2 of these, or it's not going to make a dent. Well, at least it's emptied out now. I can put down another temporary storage for some of the scrap. Buy us a little bit more time to get this working. That did the trick. I can see them up to work now. You know, the other thing I can do to make room for scrap is actually start spending metal. I think that's what I'm going to do. You know, one of the things that I need to complete for this that would probably go a long way to reclaiming this from bad water is rebuilding the aqueduct. And that's going to take a ton of our metal to do. First place I'm going to start with is this long stretch here. And that's because as soon as this is complete, this is going to feed into our bad tide diversion system. So we can eventually just bad tide divert it off the edge of the map here. Now, as I've been building here, I've been trying to follow kind of a more regular pattern. And that is basically, I'm using 4x4 overhangs for everything. So you can see here, I'm just going to outline kind of the shape for the next 4 pillars. And you know, if I use the tube network, I bet I could make this construction go a lot quicker. Yeah, that overall shape looks pretty good. And all I'm going to do is kind of cheat in a way with these overhangs. I'm going to have this tubeway just constantly be expanded on overhangs as I get farther and farther. And that's going to let me build at least the foundation of this. And you notice there's a little trick I'm doing here so I don't disrupt the bad tide. And that's that I'm not going to put the metal platforms on the bottom of this until it's ready to go. That way I've got a natural waterfall over here, and then I can wait for a drought or a good season to go ahead and fix it. The hardest part will probably be just getting crews over here and then having to dynamite away these old pillars. Given that that's going to be a little bit tedious, I think I'm just going to time-lapse through this period and then see what this looks like when we're complete. A couple of days of waiting and we've got the first segment done. Now, I was about to go ahead and dynamite this little pillar over here so I can continue with the new stuff, but I just realized something. Because I'm in an experimental, these used to be overhangs and now they're replaced with dirt, which is interesting. It was just replaced. I didn't even notice that. And if I look over elsewhere on the map, I can see that all the overhangs were actually replaced over here too. And that made me realize, with this new update, we have 3D dirt, right? And we have the capability of making overhangs with 3D dirt, as well as, importantly, tunnels. Which got me thinking, I could probably get rid of this using tunnels instead of going and dynamiting everything manually. So that's what I want to try. I want to see if I can go here, maybe dynamite the base of this foundation, and then go ahead and destroy it all at once. I wonder if the tower will just fall down. Let's go in here. I haven't messed around with this, but let's see. We've got a tunnel for 2K. Let's unlock it. It takes extract, some planks, and dynamite. And what happens if I just put TNT through all of that? In fact, let's put TNT through all of these pillars. Now, they can't reach all of these areas, but my understanding of the way this works is that when I dynamite this TNT, it's going to replace that square with a platform. There they're going. Oh, interesting. Also, I don't have any control over when it explodes. I notice as I come in here, they immediately detonate it the moment they build it. So apparently they can reach all the way through all of this. You know, with this, I bet I can go ahead and put the last set of dynamite down there too. I'm really curious if this is going to work, because this will save me a ton of time. There is everything. Now here's the test. I'm going to go down here and request to delete those stilts that I installed. And look at that. Wow, that was so much faster. We just cleared out all those pylons. You know, I had to do the same thing over here, and it was such a pain because I had to go through there and make bridges and overhangs and get beavers there to lay down dynamite. This is so much faster. So with those other pylons taken care of, we should be able to just quickly wrap up the last set of this aqueduct. Man, between tubeways and overhangs, it makes it so much faster to build things now. I was able to crank that out in no time. And you can see here, I kind of cheesed this. All I've done is create a cascading overhangs, higher and higher and higher with tubeways. And from these tubeways, I can get to and from my storage depot so quickly, I almost don't even need to have haulers hauling in stuff locally, because they can get really easy access to, say, this central construction depot over here or this depot over here. The only kind of annoying things with this build is that I needed to create these outcroppings so that they could get to the other side of these pillars. Also, what are you doing down there? How did you manage to get into that water? I've been noticing that happening more recently. I think it has something to do with the beavers being pushed off of things when you're constructing something. For example, like let's say he's standing somewhere and you build there and he has nowhere else to go, they kind of push them off into another nearby open space. I'm pretty sure that we've got a vat somewhere to heal him up. Yes, we do. We've been pretty good this game about not getting anybody contaminated. Now, I'm not going to keep this. That does look pretty funny, but this is going to be cleared off. So we can just delete all of that and all of these buildings. Damn, I didn't mean to delete those. I was a little bit overzealous there. Well, that's unfortunate. We have the supplies underneath. That's okay. We'll just run some tubeways over there real quick. Okay, that does it for this whole segment. I think the last thing we probably need to figure out aqueduct-wise is the other side over here. And luckily, I've had beavers over here tearing out a bunch of the ruins that were on top of this spot. So I have a feeling this is also going to be fairly quick to convert. Just kind of annoying. Because you can see this is powering our industry. So if I take this bad water discharge offline, it's going to shut everything else down. Don't think I have an alternative for it. I think I'm just going to have to do it. One of the things I do want to do, though, is I wonder if I can protect this area here from contaminating nearby dirt, because I don't like this being contaminated. You can see I ran into the same thing over here, and I was able to kind of create this air gap between the dirt and the water source. I have a feeling we can probably pull off something similar over here. So let's see, we've got a ton of supplies kind of backlogged. I'm going to close this for now. That's going to shut down our industry, but we've got a ton of stuff. If I'm going to do that, I need to get rid of all this dirt. And I don't want to be sitting here forever waiting for this to evaporate. I'm wondering if I can be tricky with those tunnels again. You see, there's this dirt wall on the back. I wonder if I could just go down here and blast a tunnel right at the level I need and drain it. Will that work? Like right here. Let's say I just blast this part. It's all the way down here. And because beavers can build below them, I wonder if I can build this from up here. Well, apparently not. Look, it says too far from district and cannot be reached. So that's too bad. You know, I wonder if there's a restriction of building through dirt. So for example, when I was over here, they could build down below those overhangs. But I wonder if because this is dirt, you can't build underneath it. You know, that would probably make sense from a practicality point of view. Otherwise, you could build tunnels underground without having to actually go into the tunnel. I'm gonna risk it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have one beaver who's going to pay the cost. I'm gonna send a crew in here, and I'm probably gonna get somebody contaminated, but somebody's gonna take one for the team. I'm gonna have the beavers come in here and dynamite all the way up here until they get just to the side, and that's hopefully going to drain stuff off the edge of the map. And if they're lucky, they should be dynamiting it from over here. They're not going to get contaminated. In theory, we'll see. We'll see if this works as I have planned. The other thing that I'm looking at is I noticed as I was looking at this in detail, I've actually got ruins in here, which, oh, that's a brutal trick by the map editor to put that in there. Ruins under bad water, hidden under other things. What I'm really curious is if I can dynamite a tunnel underneath it and destroy it by destroying the material underneath. That would kind of change how I approach getting rid of ruins late game. Anyways, let's see. Let's give them some time to destroy this and see what happens. Here we go. Wow, they got out in time. No injuries. If we're lucky, that should drain everything. Oh, I am really liking tunnels. This is going to open up a whole new world, things to build with. Between this and overhangs built in dirt, you could tunnel directly underground and make like a subterranean complex down here. Yeah, there are a lot of things you could do with this. Well, what I'm most curious to do is I want to dynamite all of this to get rid of it all. I want to see if I can get rid of those ruins too and then just kind of clear the building slate. Well, that's it. It's just a big set of platforms with their little bad water discharge in there. Let's see what happens now if I destroy this. Now, I'm going to be a little careful. I don't want to do it all at once because I don't want to accidentally delete our discharge because it's on the same side. If I do that, what's going to happen? So far, no problems. Let's try this. I can see it's complaining about some things now. We'll get this side. More is definitely disappearing. Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay, that did get rid of those ruins, too. Wow. That would have changed how I completely worked with this earlier in the map. You know, me having to build all this infrastructure up here to get those ruins out, that was kind of a waste of time. I could have just gone through here and dynamited the bottom layer, and everything would have collapsed underneath it. Well, in that case, I think we're just kind of in a mop-up period. Let's destroy this last pillar and then run the last bit of aqueduct, and we should be good to go here. In a couple days, we've got it all built. Now, while I was building this, I snuck in a couple of things. So first off, you can see that this aqueduct isn't in its final shape. Last episode, I mentioned I was going to make this kind of a double-decker aqueduct to carry both good water and bad water. Until I've got that set up, you'll notice over here, I only have the bottom layer configured over here. And I've set these sluice gates just to dump the bad water into the water here. Long term, this is probably not what we're going to do, but I want to get our industry back running again. The other thing that you'll notice that I've done is I've sealed this bad water source all the way up. And if I look down inside, you can see I've got it here, so it's pressurized, sealed off all on the top with some decorations, and that way I can control exactly when it lets stuff in and out. The other thing I did is I tried to air gap the bottom, just like I did in the center of the map. So the idea is hopefully this is not going to contaminate around here. It's kind of a moot point right now because there's bad water here, but that may not be forever. The other thing I did is I wanted to future-proof this. And what I mean by that is for our power plant down here, I'm going to get the water over there with pipes. And this is where I think the new tunneling ability is really amazing. What I'm going to eventually do is I'm going to seal off all these sources here and connect them to a pipe down way at the bottom of the map, take them over to the inlet to my power plant that I'm planning on building over here, and then be done with it. The problem is I don't know exactly what that pipe's going to be, but I could proactively get ready for it. So you see what I did down here is I've made a room for a pipe. I've sealed it off so water can't flow in there took it down to the bottom of the map, and sometime in the future I can get a sapper team of beavers down here, and I can run all the pipes as I want it, ready to go from below ground. Some little proactive planning I'm trying to do. We'll see if it works. For now, though, I think the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open this thing up. So far, so good. You'll notice there's no contamination growing on the sides. That's a good sign that the air gap technique worked. And as long as everything is sealed up, we should be able to get some stuff coming out here. But that should get our kind of baby power plant running again. Operations are going, and we should be in business. With Aqueduct taken care of, though, it's time to turn our attention back to wrangling this terrain in here. I think the first thing I want to do is put down some additional dirt mines. We're going to have to fill in all these pits, and I don't think one dirt excavator is going to cut it. I think I can get away with clearing out at least some of these pine trees and then putting in 2 more excavators. I know we have a full supply of dirt, but we're going to go through it very quickly once we start filling in all this bad water. At this point, we've collected so many treated planks that it's a lot cheaper to build these. And with those excavators running, I'm going to also put in domes on these last 2 bad water sources. It's kind of expensive to do, but I want to start having all the time we need to drain out all of this lake. And I'm going to start putting down some background tasks to start filling in that lake. I have a feeling it's going to take multiple episodes to fill all of this in. Okay, all those side quests taken care of, I want to blow up some stuff. I think tunnels are like my new favorite thing in this game. So I'm going to use these tunnels, and I think I'm just going to destroy all of these. It's going to be so much easier than using dynamite. I think the most important thing, though, is I need a road access down to the level I'm going to dynamite stuff away from. And that's going to be down here. So we'll get beavers down here, and then I think it's probably easier if I just use this view and we bulk spam everything. And we're going to go all the way around all the perimeter. And unfortunately, I can't put roads down until the first stuff gets laid down. But let's see, to speed up construction, maybe we can start pathing in here. And I'm trying to think if I need nearby storage for things. Wait, what does this cost? Explosives, extracts, and planks. Well, all of those are quite a short walk away. Still, it might be worth kind of a quick depot here. Okay, I think we've saturated our build queue now. Another thing I'm kind of keeping an eye on is we did eventually run out of scrap, because you'll notice all these temporary piles I created before, they're all empty. The only reason I'm not collecting scrap right now is when we turn on our bad water, we did actually flood our mine. So I've got to wait for this to be cleared up before I'm going to send beavers down in there. Other than that, let's give a little bit of time for the build queue to be processed, and then we can start tearing some stuff out. And before you know it, we've already got everything prepped to go. Man, tunnels are pretty overpowered. There's a lot of stuff that I could do with this. I think I'm more excited about this than I have been on some of the other releases lately, just because there's so many other interesting things I can build with it. Now, while we're putting in the tunnels at the base here, we do have the bad water discharges in, and I've set them to be closed. And you can see I've also sealed off this part of the river over from our other supply here. That's going to mean that long-term, this part is going to slowly evaporate. In fact, I think it would be good to start reclaiming this part of the map as well. So to reclaim this part of the map, I'm going to just kind of cut it off. I'm going to take the bad water that we're using and dumping it off the edge of the map here. The big thing I want to do, though, is get rid of this stuff. If this is going to do what I think it will, I should be able to delete that. Oh, that is so useful. Bam. Done. So much easier than having to go through and delete everything there. That's already a great start. We're getting our bad water under control. We're getting most of this prepped for building. We're going to get all those resources back. Yeah, this is looking good. Kind of next up for me, I want to get over here to where I was originally planning on putting those power plants. And it's taken a lot of work to get to this point, but maybe at least we can try to get over here with a hypertube network and start flattening this, and then we can start sculpting out the plan for the power plant. And here's where, unfortunately, I've got a problem. You see, I don't have a lot of dynamite. I thought I had enough for this operation, but I really don't. I think I spent it all destroying this pillar. So, if I'm going to destroy this in any sensible amount of time, I'm going to need more TNT production. And I'm kind of out of space up in here. I don't like doing this because I'd like to have an actual skyscraper for it, but I could probably cheap out and just stack a bunch of extra ones over here. And because this requires bad water, I can just pump it directly here. And all this heavy industry is not without its costs. You see, as I'm here making all this TNT, you'll notice we've got 23 injured beavers. And that's probably because of all our dirt excavators just causing havoc. So that's kind of an issue. You know, I think we should extend some of our hospital up here. At one point, I'm going to have a full dedicated hospital somewhere. But for now, I don't know. Let's go around and just put some hospital beds all around the perimeter up here. Really, the answer to this is to start introducing bots. I've been kind of dragging my feet in bots on this playthrough, and I'm still not even entirely sure if I'm going to introduce them at all. I might just do a pure beaver playthrough. If I do, though, their home would probably be over in this industrial center once I start building it. With TNT starting to roll in, though, it's time to tame this corner of the map. And I'm going to try that same tunneling technique. You see, this mountain has all these trees up here, and it's going to be a really big pain to tear them out and build stairs everywhere. I'm going to just surround that little corner with tunnels and see if destroying it will get rid of those trees at the same time. And the answer is you can kind of put tunnels underneath trees. So you can see here, I'm able to place tunnels under these trees up here. No problem. The only restriction they have are these, where you're trying to put the tunnel directly under the roots. You can't do it there. So at least for this run, I'm going to have to tear out all the trees, but for everything else, I don't have to climb up there. It's not perfect, but I will take it. So let's tear out those trees and pull out the rest of this thing. And that leaves us with just this last corner over here, which is easy enough to tear down the classic way. And finally, I really don't want to have to wait to get all of this evaporated. I'm going to kind of cheat. I'm just going to run some TNT all the way through here and just drain it. And there it goes off the map. Now, I really wish I could do the same with stuff over here. The problem is, this is really deep. In fact, this is all the way at the bottom of the maps. That is a big pain to get to. Actually, you know what I'm thinking? I bet I could do that with the sappers. Remember I was mentioning earlier about potentially making a pipe? I bet I could use that to drain it. Yeah, I think that idea has some potential. I just need to get some crews down to the bottom of the earth to make a tunnel, and then somehow figure out a way to set the rounds for the last dynamite without flooding the tunnel and hurting all the construction workers. First problem is how to get down to the bottom of the earth. I wonder if I can do that with a two-way station. This is going to sound odd, but I wonder if I could just pull that off. So let's say, for example, that we're going to run that pipe this direction, right under here. So I'm going to run a line down here just to get down to the bottom of the earth. You know, honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I just want to see if this is going to work. Okay, there's the tunnel built all the way down. Now, I'm pretty sure I could just have them lay down a tunnel through here and then run everything through it. For example, through here, it looks like they could build it. And then immediately afterwards, I could probably run a tube-way through it. Yep, just like that. So that is one way I could do this. I could run the tube-way down here and here, build the pipe, and then seal it off and close it. So I know that's going to work. I want to try something else, though, just as an experiment. Kind of an idea, maybe for a future video, would be like an underground bunker. And I'm wondering if I could basically tunnel under the earth with tubes and then start expanding from there and make an exit-way tube-way station. First, I want to do a quick test. For a subway station, how much clearance does it need with dirt? Like, how much space would I actually need to hollow out and down there? Well, only 2 blocks high. That's doable. That's pretty cheap. So let's say I go back here down to the ends of the earth, and we're just going to try to make that space down here. We're going to clear that space out and see if we can basically hollow a tunnel from underneath. And you can see all I've done is I had this tubeway start going over here and dynamiting, and this one starting to dynamite here. Now, if this works the way I think it will, I should be able to tear out this scaffolding right here. And there we go. We've hollowed out some space down here. And if that is just the right size, I should be able to put a two-way station all the way down there. That's pretty ridiculous. And then from the front door of the two-way station, they should be able to start making that tunnel. Well, since that is going to work and we now have our sapper station, let's go ahead and start planning the way that we're going to drain this. So here's the idea. I'm going to take this. This is going to be the main TNT route that we're going to use to drain off the edge of the map, the future one-day pipe. And you can see I've already got the other space for the pipe over here. So we're going to run through here and through here. Now over here, we're going to have to connect to here without flooding the rest of the tunnel while the crews are still down here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal that off with the levee. That way I can destroy it under my control. In some ways, I feel this game has started to become Dwarf Fortress, but with beavers. I really think tunnels opens up a lot of interesting gameplay options. Like, you could basically tunnel down to the bottom of the earth, destroy a bunch of stuff, and make an underground city, provided you kind of obey those rules of overhangs now. Only downside I find is that it is a little bit on the slow side. And part of that's just because I'm building sequentially in a row. But it would probably be a lot easier if I had like a depot underground for all this and we're building in parallel. Anyways, for now, I don't want to risk the beavers getting injured, so I'm going to seal off this door. Now we can go ahead and drain this giant lake. So I should be able to find the stopper right here, and if all of this works as planned, all that should be sucked down into that pipe. And there we go. Now this one, I really didn't have to make this branch of the pipe. It's just going to get there and come on back. But in the future, that will connect to this thing. But there it goes, draining rapidly, and we're clear. That's good. That would have taken several seasons probably to drain on its own. This is looking good. I like this drained. Because these things right here have been bothering me for a while. I can't get to these ruins unless I either dig underneath them or get scrappers down to the level of the very bottom. But now with all this pulled out, I can do just that. For this stuff, I could actually make use of the scrap, so I'm gonna go ahead and tear it out. I know I really wanted to start the power plant in this episode, but it's taken so much work just to wrangle this terrain into a manageable state. I think I'm gonna finish up with just flattening out a little bit more of the terrain, and that's gonna give us a good starting point for next episode. With that, I think we're at a good stopping point for this episode. We've got a nice, giant flat space to start building up the industrial zone next time. And I'm really looking forward to starting to work on that power plant, especially now with tunnels. I think tunnels were the surprise for me this episode. They unlocked a lot of power to destroy mountains, and the capability of building pipes without having to dig down from the surface, that's kind of a game changer. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope to catch you next time.